So I don't know what exactly I'm going to title this video, but probably something along the lines of washed up fighters, or what does a washed up fighter do at this point in his career, something like that. And I just want to describe what I mean by that exactly so you understand. So I don't know why I'm picking this guy in particular, but he just came to my head. Alexander Hernandez. He's someone who, the very beginning of his UFC career, had some potential. And he kind of burst onto the scene really quickly. And he was also one of those guys that just went right into the deep end. I think his debut was, I don't know if it was the Beneil Dariush fight, but he knocked him out in 30 seconds, and then he just got kind of pushed right into the rankings really quick. Too early, clearly. And this isn't the only reason why fighters get quote unquote washed, but it's definitely one of them, and it might be the number one reason. But I'm just gonna use him as an example to describe what I'm talking about. So yeah, he was someone who was a rising prospect, and he had a lot of potential. I don't think he got to the point where people were thinking he's going to be champ or anything, unless they're just making a bold prediction about someone. But yeah, he was kind of rising really quick, and then he ran into Cowboy, and we all remember how that fight went. And then after that, he's kind of just been this 50-50 fighter, maybe more on the losing side than winning even. He's just someone that he wasn't what we thought he was going to be, and also a combination of just the damage he took, him getting pushed into fights that he doesn't really have business being in because the people he's fighting are just better. Yeah, and so all that, he just ended up where he is now. And where he is now is he's a lower than 50-50 fighter. It's kind of just loss, win, loss, win, just back and forth stuff, right? And he kind of out of the rankings, and there's so many guys in the UFC that are like this. Obviously, only one person can be champ. And then you have your contenders, and because not everyone can win, obviously. In order for someone to win, someone has to lose. So there's going to be guys like this. But I guess my question is, where do guys like this go? What are they thinking? Because I feel like maybe they still have this belief that they can be the best, but I think a lot of them know that they just can't. Whatever it is, I think a lot of them, it's just their style. They have a style where they get hit too much, and it's just risky and just not a good enough style to compete with the guys at the top. And I guess you could either take the route of, hey, I'm kind of in this weird position where I'm winning and losing and not really advancing forward, not moving up, at least the way I want to. And so I feel like they can do something where, hey, I'm not at a position where I want to be. I want to make a big change. I want to really get to the top, and I believe I can, but it's going to take some work. And then maybe they make a drastic change in their style, or they train harder, or whatever. Just do something that's a big change that they do differently and will also bring different results as well. Then I feel like there's these guys where every time I watch them fight, it's just the same thing over and over, especially the guys that have been losing, that lose a lot in a row. It's they'll lose, let's say they lose 2 fights in a row, and then they come back, and I'm expecting them to do something different, but then they just don't. Same style, doing the same things that made them lose last time. And again, I wish I had more examples for these, specific examples, but if you just watch the fight night cards and watch the pay-per-views and watch these low, prelim fights, you'll see what I'm talking about. And if you just do some research on, because I'm someone who likes to bet on fights a lot, right? So I look at the records, I look at past fights, I look at, what they've been doing. And so many of them just don't change when what they're doing is not really bringing them top success. Yeah, you made it to the UFC, and now you make a living from this, from fighting. So I feel like some of them are just happy to do that. They made it to the UFC, and then I don't know, I don't, I think everyone's different, but to even get here, I feel like you have to have that crazy belief in you. But then maybe once you get there, you're I made it. And then you're just kind of content, and it's this is my style, I'm not changing it, even if I lose. Because something I really wonder is, are they just happy to collect the paycheck? Because we all know the whole thing about fighter pay, and compared to other sports, they don't really get paid shit. But at the same time, I've heard Kevin Holland say this, they still make a good amount of money, compared to the average person, right? Let's say, I think starting off, it's usually 10-10 or 20-20, something like that. Which, is a decent amount of money, but like all the training you have to do and the head trauma you get and the coaches you have to pay and the taxes, is that all worth it? Now, I get when you're first starting off, when you first get to the UFC, it's like you got to work your way up. You're not just going to get, $1 million like right off the bat. But even, when these people that I'm talking about that are kind of 50-50, I feel like they get to a point where it's just stagnant, and the money's probably stagnant too. Like, you got to win to move up and get paid more. We know that. And you also have to win to make more on the night. That's how the pay thing works. You get half your money if you lose, which is another crazy thing to think about. Like, imagine getting $10,000 because you lost, and then you got to pay your coaches, you got to pay your manager, you got to pay your gym, like whatever else, all these fees. Travel, I don't know, like I think the UFC pays for some things, like travel's the least they can pay for, but I don't know the ins and outs. But and then taxes, so it's like, let's say you get knocked out or you take a bad loss, it's like that's just brain damage. Maybe let's say you walk out of there with like $5,000, and then now you can't fight for another like 3 months or 4 months or 5 months or 6 months. That's just not enough. And the fact that you even you have to have a second job, which a lot of these guys do, is pretty crazy. Like, you're a professional fighter. Yeah, anyway, back to the point. Like, these guys that have a little bit of experience in the UFC, maybe they were promising in the past, they've gotten stagnant. 50-50 fighters, that's what I like to call them. Are they happy to just collect, let's say they get $50,000 a fight. I don't know what the average is. I don't know what the average UFC fighter makes. That's actually interesting. I'm gonna look at that real quick. I'm gonna actually do some research. The only research I'm doing for this video. I should have done more, but that's something I really want to know. So give me a second. Okay, yeah, so this is pretty much what I thought. The average UFC salary is $68,000 a year. That is terrible. That's like probably a little more than the average person in general, but like that's not even that much more than the average person. You're a professional fighter, you get brain damage, you get injured, you have to get surgery all the time. That's another thing. I feel like every fight, I'd say 80-90% of the time, you come out of the fight with at least some injury. Your hands are probably broken from punching someone, even if you win. If you lose, you got brain damage. Your leg might be broken, like from kicking. So that's another thing, like the hospital bills and all that stuff too. Like, that's another thing to add on. So all these expenses, $68,000 is the average UFC salary. So I guess that's my big question. Are these 50-50 guys that I'm talking about, do you think that they're happy to collect that check? Say $50,000 to $70,000 a year. Do you think they're happy to collect that check? Where are they at in their head? Are they happy to just be in the UFC and this is their career? Do they think, and do you guys think, people that are watching this, would you rather do that than work a normal, let's say a 9-to-5 where you make a good amount of money, like a solid 9-to-5 maybe after college? Would you rather do that, or would you rather be an average UFC fighter and take brain damage, get injured, have to pay people? What would you rather do? I feel like on some days I would rather be a UFC fighter, but then some days I'm like, no. Kind of just depends how my life's going. If my life sucks, I'll probably be like, fuck it, I want to be a UFC fighter. But if it's actually kind of good, I probably wouldn't want to do that. And so it's just crazy what it takes to like get to the top. And even when you get to the top, I mean, you definitely get paid a healthy salary, but nothing compared to the other sports. You have to be top of the top of the top to be in the millions. I don't know. It's like, is it worth it? Where do these guys that are kind of washed up go? What are they thinking? I guess that's my big question. A lot of them probably think different. A lot of them, this is probably their dream from, a younger age. There's guys like Peyton Talbot who is very aware of all this stuff, and I've heard him say in interviews that he might not be doing this in 5 years, and he just doesn't seem to care about it as much as other people who, it's like, this is my life, like this is what I do, I'm a fighter. I don't know, man. It's hard if you commit your whole life to something and then you're making a pretty average salary. It's tough. I don't know. I'm a little torn. Like I said, I think some days it'd be cool to be a UFC fighter, but I think I need to get paid more than that to really want to do it. So I lean more towards probably work a regular 9-to-5, to be honest. This can change at times, but I guess my final closing question would be, if you were in this position, say you worked pretty much your whole life to get to the UFC. You get there, start off well, and then you start to lose a little bit, and you lose and you lose and you lose, and maybe you get a win, and you lose again, maybe you get a win, maybe you get another win, and then you lose, and you just feel kind of stuck. Where would you go from there? Would you give it up? Would you just try to keep going, knowing that there's probably a very, very slim chance that you really make it to the top. Because the thing is, that's the whole goal of the sport, right? I mean, everyone has different goals, but the whole goal of the sport is to become champion, and there can only be one. So would you keep going with this career? Kind of, you have to at least know a little bit that you're probably not going to be champ, and you might not even get close. So once you come to that realization, would you just keep going for the money or for the fun of it? Or would you just give it up and go towards a different career path? What would you do? That's my question. Thanks for watching. Let me know.